The first day, Ada carried coffee to the old woman in the park. She didn't do it out of habit. She did it out of an impulse that squeezed her chest, as if someone had whispered, "Don't leave her alone today." And what Ada didn't know, what no one knew, was that this small, steaming cup would ignite a truth so profound that when it finally came to light, a proud millionaire would be left speechless, with his heart in his hands. Because sometimes the most powerful stories don't start in mansions or luxury offices. They start on an old bench, in an ordinary park, with a tired woman shivering from the cold, and an employee who decides to look where everyone else turns away. But listen to this, because if you stay, you'll understand why this story has made even those who swore they felt nothing weep. Ada carried coffee every day to an unknown old woman. And when the owner of the house where Ada worked found out, he thought it was foolishness, a waste of time, a quirk, until one day, by chance, he saw her with his own eyes, and in that instant, something broke within him. It wasn't because of the coffee, it wasn't because of the old woman, it was because of the way Ada handed her that cup, as if she were holding something sacred. It was because of the way the old woman looked at her, as if Ada were the last good thing left in the world. And it was because of what the millionaire heard next, words so simple and so devastating, that they forced him to confront a truth he had been hiding for years. Before I continue, I'll tell you something. If you've ever felt that the world forgot good people, subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind you that a small gesture can change a destiny. And now, tell me in the comments, what would you do if you discovered that someone close to you is secretly helping a person on the street every day? Would it bother you or inspire you? Leave it written, because what's coming will make you think differently. Ada was 32 years old, with light brown skin, dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, and a gaze that always seemed to be asking permission to exist. She had come to Lagos from Abeokuta, seeking work to support her 7-year-old son, Chike, who was her reason for getting up even when her body couldn't. She worked in the house of Chief Obinna Nwachukwu, a well-known entrepreneur across the city, owner of real estate firms, hotels, and investments. One of those men who appear in magazines with perfect smiles, but who in person rarely look you in the eye. Chief Nwachukwu lived in an elegant area, near Ikoyi, in a massive house with glass walls that reflected the sky as if the outside world were just decoration. He had staff, a gardener, a driver, a cook, and he had something else, a heavy silence, as if that house were filled with unsaid things. Ada was the new one, who had replaced 2 other employees in less than 3 months. And that already said a lot. From the first day, Auntie Bola, the head housekeeper, had quietly warned her while showing her where the cleaning products were. "My dear, here we work fast. No questions. And don't get involved where you're not called. Olga is complicated." Ada didn't ask what complicated meant, because when you have to pay rent, buy medicine, and send your child to school, you learn not to ask too many questions. But even so, some things were noticeable. Chief Nwachukwu was not a happy man, nor even a calm one. Sometimes Ada would see him go out to the terrace with his phone glued to his ear and his brow furrowed, as if every call were an argument. Other times, she would hear him walking through the hallway in the early hours of the morning with long, impatient strides, like a caged lion. And at the dining table, there was always an extra place set, an empty seat, as if someone were missing. Ada noticed it, but said nothing. Until one day, as she was taking out the rubbish, Chief Nwachukwu passed near her and spoke without looking. "Don't throw the bags in the large bin. Use the one at the back." Ada nodded. "Yes, Chief Nwachukwu." Chief Nwachukwu paused for a second, as if he had expected another reaction. "What's your name?" "Ada, sir." "Ada," he repeated, trying out the name as if he didn't like it. "Good. Just do your work and don't give me problems." And he left. It wasn't a direct insult, but Ada felt the humiliation just the same. Because there are people who don't need to shout to make you feel less. Still, Ada endured. She endured the long days, the demands, the coldness, until the old woman in the park appeared. Muriokunola Park was a 5-minute walk from the house, and Ada passed through it when she went to buy bread or fruit at Balogun Market. She saw her for the first time on a Monday. The old woman was sitting on a bench, with her back hunched and a wrapper that was too thin for the cold. She had messy gray hair and chapped lips. Beside her, a small plastic bag with 2 items inside, a piece of hard bread and a napkin. Ada couldn't help but look at her, not out of curiosity, but out of that punch of reality that leaves you breathless. Because the old woman reminded her of her grandmother, the same look, the same tired dignity, the same way of being alone, even surrounded by people. Ada kept walking, But after 3 steps, she stopped, turned around, and approached. "Excuse me, Mama, are you well?" The old woman looked up distrustfully, as if the world had taught her that every kind question holds a trap. "I am alive," she replied curtly. "That is enough." Ada felt a pang in her heart. She didn't insist. "Well, if you need anything, I pass by here often." The old woman let out a humorless laugh. "People pass by," she said. "That they pass by." And she continued to stare straight ahead. Ada left, but that day she couldn't get her out of her head. That night, as she prepared Chike's lunchbox, she watched the water boil and thought, how can someone recall their entire life on a bench? The next day, she made extra coffee, poured it into a lidded cup, and put it in her bag. She didn't know why. She just knew she had to. From that day on, the coffee became a ritual. It wasn't expensive coffee. It wasn't a grand gesture. It was just a hot coffee, with 2 sachets of sugar that Ada saved from the dining room at work. When she handed it to her, the old woman at first said nothing, just took it with trembling hands and drank slowly, as if the warmth soothed her soul. Ada would sit beside her for a few minutes. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they just sat in silence. And in that silence, Ada understood that some pains didn't ask for a solution. They asked for company. The old woman's name was Mama Ngozi. She didn't want to say her surname at first, as if her surname was a door she didn't want to reopen. But with the days, she loosened up a bit. "Do you have children?" she asked one Thursday. "Yes, one. His name is Chike. He is my life." Mama Ngozi looked down. "I had one," she said, "and I lost him." Ada didn't ask how, because some topics felt like glass. She just squeezed her hand gently. "I'm sorry, Mama Ngozi." The old woman swallowed hard. "Don't tell me that way, my child," she whispered, "because if you tell me that way, I'll want to cry." And Ada felt a lump in her throat. From then on, Ada didn't just bring coffee. Sometimes she brought a puff or an old wrapper or a piece of fruit. Nothing that her son needed, nothing that would take away from his essentials, but enough so that Mama Ngozi wouldn't feel invisible. And at some point, Ada began to notice something strange. Every time she mentioned her son, Mama Ngozi would become tense, as if that word opened a wound that still bled. And every time Ada spoke of her job, of a big house in Ikoyi, Mama Ngozi would fall silent, looking at the ground with a strange expression, as if she were doing calculations in her head, as if that information hurt her in a personal way. Ada noticed it but didn't understand until the day Chief Nwachukwu followed her. Chief Nwachukwu had been observing details for weeks. Food in the refrigerator disappeared a little faster. Coffee ran out sooner than normal, and some mornings Ada took a little longer to return when sent for something. It wasn't much, but Chief Nwachukwu was the type of man who noticed even the missing heir. One night, he called Auntie Bola, the new one. "What does she do when she goes out?" Auntie Bola tensed. "What do you mean, sir?" "Don't play innocent. She goes to see someone, brings people here, steals?" Auntie Bola's eyes widened. "No, sir. Ada is. She's hardworking." Chief Nwachukwu approached, serious. "Then tell me, why is she spending things from the house?" Auntie Bola hesitated. I haven't seen her steal." Chief Nwachukwu clenched his jaw. "Tomorrow, I will follow her." Auntie Bola wanted to speak, but she fell silent. Because in that house, when Chief Nwachukwu made a decision, no one changed it. And that's how the next day, Chief Obina Nwachukwu ended up in Muri Okunola Park, standing a few meters away, watching his employee hand a coffee to an old woman, as if she were handing over her own heart. In his mind, Chief Nwachukwu already had a story formed. Ada is deceiving me. She's taking things. She's involved in something. But what he saw didn't fit his prejudice, because he didn't see trickery. He didn't see malice. He saw something he didn't understand. Compassion. And yet, his pride didn't allow him to feel tenderness. He felt anger. "What are you doing?" he growled, appearing suddenly. Ada almost dropped the coffee cup. "Chief Nwachukwu, I. Mama Ngozi looked up, and for the first time, her expression changed completely. Her eyes widened, her face turned pale, and the cup trembled in her hands as if she had seen a ghost. Chief Nwachukwu looked at the old woman and frowned. "Who is she?" Ada swallowed nervously. She is Mama Ngozi. I bring her coffee because..." Chief Nwachukwu cut her off. "With things from my house." Ada blushed. "It's not stealing, sir. I pay for it with what I earn. I only use the hot water from..." Chief Nwachukwu's voice was harsh. "You don't decide who you help with my time. I pay you to work, not to play savior." Ada clenched her fists, holding back tears. I'm not playing, sir. She's alone. Chief Nwachukwu let out a short, cold laugh. And what's that to me? Is the whole city my responsibility now? Ada looked him in the eyes for the first time with courage. No, but it's everyone's responsibility not to pretend we're blind. The silence became heavy. Chief Nwachukwu took a step towards Mama Ngozi. And what did you tell her to make her bring you things? Mama Ngozi trembled, but not from fear of Chief Nwachukwu, but from something deeper, something old, something that was drowning her. With a broken voice, Mama Ngozi let out a sentence that changed the air in the park. I didn't ask her for anything, she whispered. She brings me coffee because she reminds me of someone I lost. Chief Nwachukwu froze. Who? Mama Ngozi slowly looked up and stared at him with an intensity that disarmed him. My daughter. Ada's eyes widened. Chief Nwachukwu swallowed. Your daughter? Mama Ngozi pressed the cup against her chest, and with accumulated tears that finally dared to fall, she said, Yes. And you also remind me of her. Obina. Chief Nwachukwu stepped back, as if he had been hit. How do you know my name? Mama Ngozi breathed with difficulty, her voice breaking. Because I watched you grow up, and in that second, Ada understood that what was happening was much bigger than a cup of coffee. And Chief Nwachukwu, for the first time in a long time, felt fear. Because if that old woman was telling the truth, then something from his past was about to explode. And that was the only thing Chief Obina Nwachukwu couldn't control with money. The silence in Muriokunola Park became thick. The sounds of the park children playing, the balloon seller, the distant calls of a street vendor seemed to have muted around that bench. Chief Obina Nwachukwu was not a man easily surprised. He had faced financial crises, lawsuits, corporate betrayals, but that phrase, I watched you grow up, fell like a stone on his chest. I don't know who you are, he said with a firm voice, though something inside him trembled. And I don't like being played with. Mama Ngozi didn't avert her gaze. I'm not playing, Obina. Ada watched the scene with a racing heart. She felt she was witnessing something she shouldn't, but she also couldn't leave. There was too much emotion contained in the air. Chief Nwachukwu clenched his fists. My mother died years ago. Mama Ngozi closed her eyes for a second. A tear rolled down her time-marked cheek. Yes, she died to you. That phrase unsettled him. What does that mean? Mama Ngozi took a deep breath. It means they told you she died because it was easier than explaining the truth. Ada felt a shiver run down her spine. Chief Nwachukwu took a step back. You're confused. No. Mama Ngozi's voice was soft, but firm. Confused. I spent many years waiting for you to come back. Chief Nwachukwu's world began to crack from within. His mother, they always told him she had died when he was 5, that it had been a sudden illness, that his father had done everything possible. There was never an open wake, never many photos, never details, just silence. And now, this woman on a bench was saying, no, it's not possible. Chief Nwachukwu shook his head. My father would never lie about something like that. Mama Ngozi let out a bitter laugh. Your father never tolerated that. I wanted to leave. Ada's eyes widened. Leave? Yes. Mama Ngozi looked at her trembling hands. He wanted me to be the perfect wife, quiet, submissive. But I had dreams, I had a voice. Chief Nwachukwu felt the ground beneath his designer shoes was no longer firm. My father was a respected man. He was a powerful man, she corrected, who bought silence. Chief Nwachukwu's heart pounded hard. Are you making this up, Mama Ngozi? She looked at him with a mix of pain and tenderness. You have the same look when you get angry, just like when you were a child and didn't want to sleep. Ada felt her breath catch. Chief Nwachukwu began to breathe faster. Enough. But Mama Ngozi continued, knowing this might be her only chance. They took you from my side one night. They said it was for your own good, that I wasn't stable, that you needed discipline. Chief Nwachukwu felt something inside him wanted to listen and something wanted to flee. That's a lie. They forced me to sign papers. They said if I didn't, I would never see you again. Mama Ngozi's voice broke. I signed, believing it was temporary. Ada brought her hand to her mouth. The park no longer existed. Only that story breathed between them. Chief Nwachukwu remembered fragments. A small suitcase, a hurried hug, his father's voice saying, Your mother is sick, she can't take care of you. Chief Nwachukwu's voice became softer. I remember, she was crying. Mama Ngozi closed her eyes. I never stopped looking for you. A tremor crossed Chief Nwachukwu's body. And why are you here? Why in this park? Because I knew you lived nearby. She looked at him directly. I didn't want to ruin your life. I just wanted to see you, even from afar. Ada felt a lump in her chest. And the coffee? She asked in a low voice. Mama Ngozi smiled weakly. The coffee was the first gesture of kindness I've received in years. Chief Nwachukwu observed her with a mixture of rage and bewilderment. And why didn't you come to my house? Why didn't you knock on the door? Mama Ngozi looked down. Because I feared you would close your heart to me just like your father did. That blow was direct. Chief Nwachukwu had always been cold, distant, controlling. And now this woman was implying that he had become the very thing he criticized. You have no proof of anything, he said, trying to regain control. Mama Ngozi reached into her worn bag and pulled out a small, old envelope, wrinkled by the years. I kept this. Chief Nwachukwu took it with stiff hands. It was a photo. Him, as a small boy, sitting on a swing, and the woman behind him, young, smiling. Chief Nwachukwu's heart stopped for a second. That photo wasn't in any album in his house. Where did you get this? From my purse. I've carried it with me all these years. Ada watched as the millionaire's face began to change. It was no longer arrogance. It was doubt. Chief Nwachukwu ran his finger over the image. This proves nothing. You have a scar on your left knee, Mama Ngozi said suddenly. You got it falling off that same swing. I carried you crying to the kitchen and promised I would always be there. Chief Nwachukwu felt a punch in his stomach. That scar was there, and no one outside his immediate family knew about it. Ada watched as the impeccably dressed man began to lose his composure. If this is true, he whispered, then my whole life. He didn't finish the sentence, because it implied accepting that his father had separated him from his mother, that his story was incomplete, that his identity was built on a lie, and that was too much. Chief Nwachukwu turned around. I need to think. Obina, Mama Ngozi said with a fragile voice. I didn't come to destroy you. I just wanted to know if you were happy. That question was the cruelest of all. Was he happy? He had money, prestige, respect, but happiness? Ada remembered the table with the empty plate, the nocturnal walks, the silence of that enormous house. Chief Nwachukwu didn't answer. He just walked a few steps, but something stopped him. He turned again. If this is true, why did you never legally look for me? Mama Ngozi breathed with difficulty. Because I had no resources. Because after signing those papers, I was left alone. Because no one wanted to confront your father. Chief Nwachukwu felt his father's name begin to weigh on him more than ever. Ada took a step forward. Chief Nwachukwu, I knew nothing of this. I know, he said without looking at her. The park seemed to watch them. The balloon seller passed by, oblivious to the emotional earthquake occurring on that bench. And now what do you want? Chief Nwachukwu finally asked. Mama Ngozi looked at him with sincere tears. Nothing. I don't want your money. I don't want your name. I just wanted to tell you that I never stopped loving you. Chief Nwachukwu's heart broke in a place that had been armored for years. Because no one told him that. No one looked at him that way. And suddenly, he understood something devastating. He had spent years building empires, but he had never built a home. Ada felt she was witnessing a moment that would change everything. Chief Nwachukwu took a deep breath. I need proof, documents, something to confirm this. Mama Ngozi nodded. I have them. Not here, but I have them. The millionaire put the photo in his inner suit pocket. I will investigate. His voice was no longer harsh. It was vulnerable. Ada felt a small relief. But then Mama Ngozi added something that left him immobile. Your father not only separated me from you, he also hid something else. Chief Nwachukwu looked at her with tension. What? Mama Ngozi hesitated for a second. That you weren't his only child. The world broke again. Ada felt the air disappear. What are you saying? I'm saying, Mama Ngozi whispered, that before I left, I was pregnant. The silence was absolute. Chief Nwachukwu felt his heart jump out of his chest. That's impossible. It's not. Ada brought her hand to her chest. She had another child? Mama Ngozi looked down. Yes. Chief Nwachukwu took a step back. Where is he? Tears finally fell uncontrollably. I lost him too. The pain in her voice was so profound that no one could doubt her sincerity. Your father made sure I never saw him again. Chief Nwachukwu's world no longer had form. Not only had he lost a mother, but also a brother or sister he never knew. Is he alive? He asked with a broken voice. Mama Ngozi slowly shook her head. I don't know. Ada felt that this story was only just beginning to unravel. Chief Nwachukwu looked at the woman in front of him. He no longer saw her as a stranger. He saw her as a possibility, as a mirror of the past. and for the first time in many years he felt like crying, but pride still fought within him. "If this is true," he finally said, "then my father stole more than a mother from me." Mama Ngozi nodded. "He stole the truth from you." The sun began to descend slowly, painting the park in golden tones. Ada understood that her small gesture of coffee had opened a gigantic door. A truth buried for decades was beginning to breathe. And the most unsettling thing was that they still needed to discover what had happened to that second child. Because if he was alive, that meant the Nwachukwu family was not as Chief Nwachukwu always believed. And if he wasn't, then someone had to answer for it. Chief Nwachukwu looked at Ada. "Tomorrow, you don't work." She opened her eyes. "Sir, come to my house at 8. I need you to hear something." Ada felt fear and curiosity at the same time. "Yes, sir." Chief Nwachukwu looked at Mama Ngozi again. "I promise nothing, but I will find out the truth." And in that instant, something changed. It wasn't reconciliation yet. It wasn't forgiveness. It was the beginning of a search. And when a man who always controlled everything decides to seek the truth, the past begins to tremble. That night, Chief Obinna Nwachukwu didn't sleep. The photo remained on his desk, dimly lit by the Italian crystal lamp that had always seemed elegant to him, but now cast long, unsettling shadows. The image was real, too real. He could remember the swing, he could remember his mother's light dress, he could remember her perfume. What he couldn't remember was the moment she died, and that was destroying him from within. In the main bedroom of the Ikoyi mansion, the silence was unbearable. The clock struck 3 a.m. When Chief Nwachukwu got up, he put on a jacket and went down to the private study where he kept family documents. If Mama Ngozi was telling the truth, there had to be traces. He opened the old metal filing cabinet that had belonged to his father. Folders, deeds, wills, certificates. Everything was perfectly ordered, too perfect. Chief Nwachukwu began to review documents related to his childhood. Birth certificate, school records, medical insurance. He looked for his mother's death certificate. It wasn't there. He felt a blow to his chest. He searched again with more anxiety. Nothing. How was it possible? He always believed he had seen it, always assumed it existed, but now he couldn't find any official proof of her death. Sweat dampened his hands. He picked up the phone, dialed the number of Barrister Oladele, the family lawyer for 30 years. "Obinna." Barrister Oladele answered in a sleepy voice. "Is something wrong? I need you to get me my mother's death certificate." There was a silence on the other end. "That's in the family archives, Obinna." "It's not." Barrister Oladele took a deep breath. "Your father handled many documents personally." "Perhaps." Chief Nwachukwu interrupted him firmly. "Did my mother really die when they said she died?" The silence was longer, this time too long. "Obinna, those are things of the past." Chief Nwachukwu's heart stopped for a second. "Answer me." Barrister Oladele Sihil. "Your father asked that the matter not be stirred up." That phrase was like an unspoken confirmation. "What matter? I can't talk on the phone." Chief Nwachukwu closed his eyes. Doubt was no longer a possibility. It was a reality. "Come tomorrow morning." "I'll be there," Barrister Oladele replied. Chief Nwachukwu hung up. He slumped into the leather chair. For years, he had defended his father's memory. He admired him, imitated him, and now he discovered that perhaps the man who taught him to be strong had been responsible for his greatest emptiness. At 8 o'clock sharp, Ada rang the doorbell of the mansion. She wasn't wearing a uniform, just a simple beige dress and an expression of evident nervousness. Auntie Bola opened the door. "Come in, my child. Oga is waiting for you." Ada walked down the long corridor with a strange feeling in her stomach. Chief Nwachukwu stood in front of the glass wall, looking out at the city. When she entered, he didn't turn immediately. "Do you trust that woman?" he asked without preamble. Ada swallowed. "Yes, sir." Chief Nwachukwu finally turned. His eyes were red, not from anger, but from something deeper. "Last night, I checked documents. My mother's death certificate doesn't exist." Ada felt a shiver. Then someone lied. The doorbell rang again. Barrister Oladele entered minutes later with a black briefcase. He was an older man, elegant, with a gaze heavy with years of secrets. Chief Nwachukwu greeted him gravely. "Sit down," Chief Nwachukwu ordered. Ada remained silent, almost invisible, but he didn't ask her to leave. That was already a change. Barrister Oladele opened the briefcase, took out an old folder, yellowed by time. "Your mother, Ngozi Okoro, did not die in 1994, he finally said. Ada felt the air freeze. Chief Nwachukwu clenched his teeth. "Then what happened?" Barrister Oladele hesitated. Your father filed for a legal separation. He alleged emotional instability. That's true. There was no medical evidence. It was a strategic decision. Chief Nwachukwu's heart pounded with fury. He sought sole custody. Chief Nwachukwu felt the world spin. And the supposed death? Barrister Oladele looked down. Your father decided to tell you she had passed away. He believed it was simpler than explaining the conflict. Ada brought her hand to her chest. Chief Nwachukwu stood up abruptly. They lied to me my whole life. His voice echoed in the study. Obina, Barrister Oladele, tried to calm him. Your father wanted to protect the family's reputation. Protection! He spat the word with rage. He stole my mother from me. The silence became heavy. Ada watched with moist eyes. The cold, calculating man was breaking down in front of her. There's something else, Barrister Oladele added with difficulty. Chief Nwachukwu looked at him with contained fury. Speak. Your mother filed a complaint after the separation. Ada's eyes widened. A complaint? Yes. Barrister Oladele continued. She claimed she was pregnant. Chief Nwachukwu's heart almost stopped. And your father challenged the declaration. He claimed it wasn't his child. Chief Nwachukwu felt nauseous. Is that true? There was no DNA test. The case was closed due to a lack of legal resources on your mother's part. The silence was devastating. Ada felt Mama Ngozi's story begin to fit together. That baby was born? Chief Nwachukwu asked in a barely audible voice. Barrister Oladele took a deep breath. Yes. The world stopped. Where is he? Chief Nwachukwu whispered. Barrister Oladele swallowed hard. There are no subsequent records in our archives. Chief Nwachukwu felt the air leave him. What do you mean, no records? After the lawsuit, your father paid an out-of-court settlement. Ada felt her blood boil. A settlement? Yes, in exchange for Ngozi abandoning any claims. Chief Nwachukwu closed his eyes tightly. The image of his father, always so upright and honorable in public, began to crumble. Do you know what this means? He said with a broken voice. It means I have a brother or sister somewhere? Ada took a step forward, and she didn't lie. Chief Nwachukwu looked at Ada for the first time with something different in his eyes. It wasn't superiority, it was vulnerability. I need to find him. Barrister Oladele shook his head. Almost 30 years have passed. I don't care. Chief Nwachukwu picked up the photo again. I won't let money bury the truth again. Ada felt something deeply changing in him. He was no longer the man who criticized her gesture in the park. He was a son, a wounded son. Chief Nwachukwu, she said softly, perhaps Mama Ngozi knows something more. Chief Nwachukwu nodded. We'll go see her today. Hours later, the three returned to Muri Okunola Park. Mama Ngozi was on the same bench. When she saw Chief Nwachukwu approaching with determined steps, her expression was a mix of fear and hope. We need to talk, he said bluntly. Mama Ngozi nodded. The three sat down. Chief Nwachukwu took a deep breath. It's true, my father lied. You didn't die. Tears filled the old woman's eyes. I knew it. I knew it. And the baby? He continued. What happened? Mama Ngozi's face filled with pain. He was born in a public clinic in Agege. Ada felt a shiver. And then they told me there were complications, that he needed special care, that he would be transferred. Chief Nwachukwu felt his heart break. You only saw him once. The old woman's voice was barely a whisper. They took him from me. They said it was for his own good. Ada closed her eyes. Did they give you any documents? Mama Ngozi slowly shook her head. Only a letter saying the child had been adopted. Chief Nwachukwu felt a punch in his chest. Adopted? Yes. The silence was absolute. You have that letter? Mama Ngozi nodded. I kept it all these years. Chief Nwachukwu looked at the horizon. The world he knew was made of carefully constructed lies. I'm going to find him. Ada looked at him. There was determination in his voice. It wasn't the pride of before. It was necessity. Mama Ngozi trembled. Obinna, I don't want to cause you more pain. He looked at her with moist eyes. The pain is already here. What I want is truth. The wind blew strong in the park. Ada felt the story was about to get even deeper, because if that child had been adopted, then someone had grown up without knowing who they truly were. And if Chief Nwachukwu found him, nothing would ever be the same. The air in Muri Okunola Park was no longer the same. There was something in Chief Nwachukwu's gaze that Ada had never seen before. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't control. It was urgency. A silent urgency that doesn't stem from pride, but from emptiness. Mama Ngozi, sitting on the bench, held her worn bag as if inside it she kept the last piece of her past. "The letter is in my room," she said with a trembling voice. "I never dared to throw it away." Chief Nwachukwu nodded. "Let's go now." Ada hesitated for a second. She had never seen the millionaire walk so fast, regardless of who was watching him. He didn't carry his usual rigid posture. He didn't look like the man who gave orders in millionaire meetings. He looked like a son who feared arriving too late. Mama Ngozi lived in a modest pension in Agege, 20 minutes from the park, an old building with peeling paint and a smell of dampness. Chief Nwachukwu stopped in front of the rusty metal door. That place didn't fit his world of marble and glass, but he entered. The room was small, a simple bed, an old wardrobe, a table with an old lamp, and in a box under the bed, the past. Mama Ngozi knelt with difficulty and pulled out a cardboard box wrapped in plastic. Her hands trembled. "I never thought you would come back for this," she whispered. Chief Nwachukwu knelt in front of her. For the first time, his eyes weren't above someone. They were at the same level. Mama Ngozi opened the box. There were old photos, newspaper clippings, a child's bracelet, and a yellowed white envelope, aged by the years. She held it for a few seconds before handing it over. "Here it says everything they let me know." Chief Nwachukwu took the envelope. His hands were no longer firm. He opened it. The paper crackled as it unfolded. Ada watched in silence. The document bore the seal of a public clinic. Female patient, Ngozi Okoro, male newborn. Stable condition, transfer authorized. Further down, a typed note. Minor to be placed under private adoption protocol. Mother signs voluntary relinquishment of rights. Chief Nwachukwu felt his blood boil. "Voluntary relinquishment," Mama Ngozi murmured. She shook her head, tears in her eyes. "They made me sign when I was sedated. They said if I didn't, I would never see you again." The silence was devastating. Ada felt an enormous weight in her chest. Chief Nwachukwu crumpled the paper. "This is illegal." "In those days, no one listened to a woman without money," Mama Ngozi replied. Chief Nwachukwu took a deep breath. "Does it say the adoptive family's name?" Mama Ngozi shook her head. "I never knew more." Ada approached slowly. "Chief Nwachukwu, with the protocol number, perhaps the file can be traced." Chief Nwachukwu looked at her, and in his gaze there was something new. Respect. "You're right." He picked up the phone. "Barrister Oladele," he said as soon as it was answered. "I need you to trace an adoption protocol from 1995. Agege Public Clinic." There was a silence on the other end. "That's complicated, Obina. Those are old files." "I don't care. Find it." He hung up. He turned to Mama Ngozi. "I'm not letting this go." The old woman looked at him with mixed fear and hope. "Obina, if you find him, maybe he won't want to know anything about us." That possibility hit hard, because seeking the truth also means accepting rejection. "It doesn't matter," he said with a firm voice. "He has a right to know." Ada felt that the man in front of her was not the same. There was something more human in his words, something money had never given him. 2 days later, Barrister Oladele called. "I found something." Chief Nwachukwu was in his study. Ada was quietly cleaning, but her ear was attentive. "The file was transferred to a private adoption agency," Barrister Oladele continued. "It closed in 2002, but the archives were absorbed by another institution." Chief Nwachukwu stood up. "Give me the address." That same afternoon, Chief Nwachukwu and Ada drove to an office in downtown Lagos. Ada had never ridden in that car as a passenger. She always traveled in the back, or by public transport. Now she was sitting next to the millionaire. The silence was different, not uncomfortable, but loaded with meaning. "Thank you," he said suddenly. Ada looked at him, surprised. "For what, sir?" "For not giving up on the coffee." She looked down. "Sometimes small things change big things." Chief Nwachukwu nodded slowly. Perhaps his whole life he had been looking for giant solutions when what he needed was something simple. They arrived at the office. A woman received them. "We are looking for information about an adoption from 1995, Chief Nwachukwu said, showing the document. The woman patiently reviewed the digital files. Eternal minutes passed. Finally, she looked up. "Here it is." Chief Nwachukwu felt his heart pounding in his ears. The minor was adopted by a couple with the surname Salako. Ada held her breath. "Do they live in Lagos?" "No. They moved to Abuja 2 years later." Chief Nwachukwu felt the world move. "The child's name?" The woman hesitated. "It was legally changed. He is now listed as Daniel Salako." Daniel. The name resonated in Chief Nwachukwu's chest like an unknown echo. Current age, 28 years old. The same calculation they had made. Ada felt the story become real. It wasn't just a memory, it was a living person. Can we get an address? The woman shook her head. Only under legal process. Chief Nwachukwu clenched his jaw. We will initiate it. As they left, Ada noticed something. Chief Nwachukwu wasn't smiling. He wasn't euphoric either. He was scared. Are you afraid? She asked softly. Chief Nwachukwu didn't answer immediately. I'm afraid he'll hate me. Ada felt tenderness. Perhaps he won't. Perhaps he will. The millionaire who never feared losing money now feared losing an opportunity. That night, Chief Nwachukwu returned to the pension. Mama Ngozi was waiting for him, sitting on the bed. Did you find anything? Yes. She held her breath. He's alive. Tears flowed uncontrollably. His name is Daniel. He lives in Abuja. Mama Ngozi covered her face. Thank you. Thank you. Chief Nwachukwu sat beside her, and for the first time in decades, he hugged her. Ada, standing at the door, felt the world stop. That hug wasn't elegant, it wasn't perfect, it was clumsy, it was late, but it was real. And sometimes what's real is worth more than what's perfect. I'm going to look for him, Chief Nwachukwu said with a firm voice. Mama Ngozi looked at him with fear. What if he doesn't want to see us? Chief Nwachukwu took a deep breath. Then at least he'll know we tried. Ada understood something profound in that instant. The coffee was never just coffee. It was the bridge. It was the spark that opened a door closed for almost 30 years. As they were about to leave, Mama Ngozi remembered something. There's something else. Chief Nwachukwu looked at her. The day they took the baby from me, there was a nurse who was crying. Ada frowned. Why? Because she said it wasn't fair. Chief Nwachukwu felt a pang. Do you remember her name? Mama Ngozi thought. I think it was Mrs. Adeola. Ada's eyes widened. My mother's name is Mrs. Adeola. The silence was absolute. Chief Nwachukwu slowly turned to Ada. What did you say? She swallowed. My mother worked for many years in a public clinic in Agege in the 90s set. The world changed again. Is she still alive? Chief Nwachukwu asked. Yes. Chief Nwachukwu's heart pounded. I need to speak with her. Ada felt that destiny was weaving something much bigger than they imagined. Because if her mother was that nurse, then there was someone else who knew the truth. And perhaps there were details that had not yet come to light. Chief Nwachukwu looked at Mama Ngozi. This doesn't end here. And for the first time, his voice didn't sound like a corporate promise. It sounded like the determination of a son no longer willing to live in lies. The past was beginning to open, and what they would discover in Abuja could change not only Daniel's life, but also Chief Nwachukwu's and Ada's. Because sometimes when you decide to seek the truth, you discover that your story was connected to more people than you imagined. The journey from Agege to Ada's mother's house was silent. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was a weighty silence. Chief Nwachukwu drove with his gaze fixed ahead, but his mind was decades back, in a public clinic, in a delivery room, in a forced signature. Ada had her hands clasped on her lap. She never imagined that the simple gesture of bringing coffee would end up connecting her life with the story of her own boss. My mother doesn't talk much about the past, she said softly. She was always reserved about her work. Chief Nwachukwu nodded. I just need her to tell the truth. Ada glanced at him. For the first time, she didn't see him as Chief Nwachukwu. She saw him as a man rebuilding his identity piece by piece. They arrived at a simple house in a quiet neighborhood of Agege. Light blue painted walls, a small garden with potted plants. Ada got out first, knocked on the door. A woman in her late 50s opened it. Hair pulled back, warm gaze, noble weariness. Ada? She asked, surprised. Is everything all right? Ada took a deep breath. Mama, we need to talk. The woman looked at Chief Nwachukwu, recognized him instantly. The color drained from her face. You, she whispered. Chief Nwachukwu felt a pang in his chest. Are you Mrs. Adeola? She didn't respond immediately. Her eyes began to water. Yes. Ada felt her heart pound. Mama, did you work at the Agege Public Clinic in 1995? Mrs. Adeola closed her eyes for a second. Yes. The silence became heavy. Chief Nwachukwu took a step forward. My mother gave birth there that year. Mrs. Adeola looked at him as if she had been waiting for this moment for years. I know. Ada felt the ground disappear beneath her. What? Mrs. Adeola took a deep breath. Come in. They entered. The living room was small but cozy. Mrs. Adeola sat down slowly. Her hands trembled. I always knew this day would come, she said. Chief Nwachukwu felt a shiver. So, you know what happened? Mrs. Adeola looked down. Your mother didn't want to sign. Chief Nwachukwu's heart stopped. How? They told her the baby needed special care, that it would be better to transfer him. She was weak, vulnerable, and she was sedated. Ada brought her hand to her mouth. They forced her? Mrs. Adeola nodded. The child's father was present. He had lawyers. He had influence. Chief Nwachukwu felt rage begin to boil. My father. Mrs. Adeola looked at him with compassion. Yes, the silence was devastating. I was young, Mrs. Adeola continued. I had no power. I could only watch. Ada felt a lump in her throat. Why were you crying? She asked. Mrs. Adeola looked at her daughter. Because I saw a mother being separated from her child without truly understanding what she was signing. Chief Nwachukwu felt the air become heavy. The baby was healthy. Mrs. Adeola held his gaze. Yes, that word fell like a bomb. He didn't need transfer. He didn't need adoption. Ada felt indignation course through her body. So it was a deception? Mrs. Adeola nodded. Yes. Chief Nwachukwu stood up abruptly. My father bought everyone's silence. Mrs. Adeola gently shook her head. Not everyone's. Chief Nwachukwu looked at her. I kept a copy of the file. The hearts of all three quickened. You have it? Chief Nwachukwu asked in a tense voice. Mrs. Adeola stood up. She walked to an old drawer, pulled out an envelope, and placed it on the table. I could never destroy it. Chief Nwachukwu opened the envelope with trembling hands. It contained medical records, signatures, a handwritten note, transfer, requested by legal guardian, mother under sedative effect. Chief Nwachukwu felt his blood boil. Ada observed every word. Does this prove she was forced? She asked. Mrs. Adeola nodded. It proves she was not in a condition to sign voluntarily. The silence was profound. Chief Nwachukwu took a deep breath. With this I can reopen the case. Mrs. Adeola looked at him carefully. Obina, don't just seek legal justice. He frowned. What do you mean? Seek emotional truth. Ada felt that phrase was important. Mrs. Adeola continued. Your father acted out of fear. I don't justify what he did, but fear generates cruel decisions. Chief Nwachukwu clenched his fists. Fear of what? Mrs. Adeola looked at him directly. Of losing control, of losing reputation, of losing you. The silence was revealing. Ada understood something in that instant. Chief Nwachukwu's father had not acted solely out of malice. He had acted out of obsession, out of a need for dominance. Does my brother know anything? Chief Nwachukwu finally asked. Mrs. Adeola shook her head. I don't think so. Ada looked at her mother. Do you remember the name of the adoption intermediary? Mrs. Adeola thought for a few seconds. It was a man named Mr. Segun Peters. He worked with high-profile families. Chief Nwachukwu felt the story begin to fit together like a dark puzzle. Is he still alive? I don't know. Ada felt that each answer opened more questions. Chief Nwachukwu took the documents. Thank you. Mrs. Adeola looked at him with tenderness. I also lost something that day. He looked at her, surprised. I lost faith in the system. The silence became human. Ada approached her mother and hugged her. Thank you for not keeping silent. Mrs. Adeola held her tightly. I never wanted you to live with lies. Chief Nwachukwu observed the scene and understood something that hit him with brutal softness. Love is not always perfect, but when it is sincere, it endures for decades. He turned to Mrs. Adeola. Would you be willing to testify if necessary? Mrs. Adeola took a deep breath. Yes. Ada felt pride. Her mother had not been an accomplice. She had been a witness, and now she would be a voice. As they left the house, Chief Nwachukwu walked in silence. What will you do now? Ada asked. Travel to Abuja. She looked at him. Alone? Chief Nwachukwu hesitated for a second. He didn't look at her directly. I want you to come. Ada's eyes widened. Me? You were the beginning of all this. Ada's heart pounded. She never imagined she would end up being part of something so big. Okay. Chief Nwachukwu took a deep breath. We leave early tomorrow. That night, as the Lagos sky was painted orange and violet, 3 lives were changing at the same time. Mama Ngozi, in her small room, prayed in silence. Mrs. Adeola, in her blue house, looked at the past with less guilt. And Chief Nwachukwu, in his enormous mansion, understood for the first time that power didn't make him strong. Truth did. But the question hanging in the air was another. How would Daniel react when he learned that his story was not what he was told? Because finding him was just the beginning. The difficult part would be opening a door that had been closed for almost 30 years. And sometimes not everyone is ready to hear who they really are. The dawn in Lagos was different that morning, not because the sky was clearer, Not because the air was different, but because for the first time in many years, Chief Obina Nwachukwu didn't wake up thinking about business, but about a name, Daniel. Ada arrived punctually with a small backpack and a racing heart. She had never left the city accompanying her boss, much less for something so personal. The black car sped down the expressway towards Abuja, while the silence between them was laden with unspoken thoughts. "What if he doesn't want to see me?" Chief Nwachukwu asked suddenly, without taking his eyes off the road. Ada took a few seconds to respond. Then, "At least he will know that there is a truth greater than the one he was told." Chief Nwachukwu nodded slowly. For years he had controlled contracts, companies, investments, but now he faced something he couldn't calculate with numbers. The fear of not being accepted. They arrived at midday. Barrister Oladele had managed to obtain an address through a preliminary legal process. Daniel Salako lived in a quiet residential area, far from ostentatious luxury, but comfortable. Ada looked at the lined houses, the well-kept trees, the cars parked in front of each garage. "Perhaps he had a good life," she whispered. Chief Nwachukwu felt a lump in his throat. "I hope so." They parked in front of a cream-colored house with a small balcony. Chief Nwachukwu took a deep breath before getting out. For a second he hesitated. It wasn't physical fear, it was emotional fear. He rang the doorbell. Eternal seconds passed. The door opened. A man about 28 years old appeared. Dark hair, firm gaze, calm posture, and something in his expression made the world stop because he had the same eyes as Chief Nwachukwu. Ada noticed it instantly. Daniel frowned slightly. "Yes?" Chief Nwachukwu opened his mouth, but the words didn't come out. He had never rehearsed this moment. He had never imagined that blood could recognize itself this way. "Daniel Salako," he finally managed to say. "Yes, who is looking for him?" Chief Nwachukwu swallowed. "My name is Obina Nwachukwu." Daniel looked at him without recognition. Doesn't ring a bell. Ada took a small step forward. "We came to talk to you about something important." Daniel assessed their faces. He saw no threat, but he did see tension. "I'm working," he said firmly. "If it's commercial, I'm not interested." Chief Nwachukwu took a deep breath. "It's not commercial, it's personal." Daniel hesitated. Finally, he opened the door a little wider. 5 minutes. They entered. The living room was simple, tidy. On a shelf there were family photos. Daniel with an older couple, smiling. Chief Nwachukwu felt something unexpected. Relief. He had been loved. Daniel sat across from them. "All right. What is this about?" Chief Nwachukwu felt his heart pounding in his chest. "Do you know you're adopted?" The silence was immediate. Daniel blinked once, then twice. "Yes," he replied with surprising calm. "My parents never hid it from me." Ada felt the air circulate again. Daniel crossed his arms. "What does that have to do with you?" Chief Nwachukwu held his gaze. "It has to do with your origin." Daniel didn't lose his composure. "My origin is this house. My parents, my life." Chief Nwachukwu nodded slowly. "And that doesn't change." The young man watched him cautiously, then explained. Chief Nwachukwu took a deep breath. "Your biological mother's name is Ngozi Okoro." Daniel froze. The firm expression began to crack, barely perceptibly. "How do you know that?" "Because she is my mother too." The world froze. Ada felt time stop. Daniel suddenly stood up. "What are you saying?" Chief Nwachukwu also stood up, but maintained distance. "I'm saying I'm your brother." The silence became almost painful. Daniel began to pace back and forth. No, this is not possible." Ada watched with a racing heart. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "My parents told me my biological mother couldn't take care of me, that it was a voluntary decision." Chief Nwachukwu held his gaze. "It wasn't." Daniel stopped. "Are you implying I was stolen?" The word fell like a stone. Chief Nwachukwu didn't dodge it. "I'm saying there was manipulation." Daniel looked at him with disbelief and contained rage. "And why should I believe you?" Chief Nwachukwu took out the copy of the file, placed it on the table. "Because I have proof." Daniel hesitated, took the papers. His eyes slowly scanned the lines. Ada could see his breathing change. This is false," he whispered, though his voice didn't sound convinced. "There's a nurse willing to testify," Chief Nwachukwu added, "and my mother never stopped looking for you." Daniel looked up sharply. "She's alive?" The question had no rage, it had fear. Chief Nwachukwu nodded. "Yes." Daniel felt the world tilt. For years he had imagined his biological mother as a shadow, a closed mystery, and now they were telling him she was alive and that she had loved him. His voice broke slightly. I need to think. Ada spoke for the first time directly to him. We haven't come to take anything from you. Daniel looked at her. She held his gaze gently. We've come to give you the option of knowing the truth. The young man took a deep breath. My adoptive parents are my family. Chief Nwachukwu nodded. And no one wants to change that. Daniel looked at the documents again. His world was beginning to totter. Why now? He finally asked. Chief Nwachukwu lowered his voice. Because the truth came to light by chance, thanks to someone who brought coffee every day to a woman no one looked at. Daniel frowned. What? Ada took a deep breath and told him everything. The park, the coffee, the confession, the investigation. Daniel listened in silence. When she finished, the young man slumped into the armchair. This is too much. Chief Nwachukwu felt a strange impulse. He didn't know whether to hug him or step back. He chose the latter. You don't have to decide anything today. Daniel looked at him. There was something in Chief Nwachukwu's eyes that wasn't calculation. It was vulnerability. She wants to see me? He asked softly. Chief Nwachukwu felt his heart stop. Yes. The silence was different now. It wasn't rejection. It was fear mixed with curiosity. Daniel looked at the family photo on the shelf, then looked back at Chief Nwachukwu. I need to talk to my parents first. Chief Nwachukwu nodded. That's right. Ada felt relief. It hadn't been a violent closure. It had been an open door. Daniel walked to the door. Before they left, he said, If this is true, I want definitive proof. Chief Nwachukwu held his gaze. You'll have it. When the car started back to the hotel, neither spoke for several minutes. Ada finally broke the silence. He didn't kick us out. Chief Nwachukwu exhaled slowly. That's something. He looked in the rearview mirror. He has my eyes. Ada smiled faintly. And your way of frowning. Chief Nwachukwu let out a brief laugh. It wasn't a business laugh. It was human. But he knew the hardest part was just beginning, because now it wasn't just about documents. It was about emotions. And emotions aren't signed or filed. They're faced. In Abuja, Daniel stood in front of the closed door, holding the papers, feeling that the life he knew had cracks. And for the first time in his life, he wondered who he really was. That night in Abuja, no one slept peacefully. In his hotel room, Chief Nwachukwu remained seated by the window, gazing at the distant city lights, as if he could find an answer in them. Ada was in the adjoining room, but she couldn't sleep either. She knew that what was at stake was no longer just a reunion. It was identity, belonging, a wound that had been open for almost 30 years. Meanwhile, in the cream-colored house in the quiet neighborhood, Daniel sat at the dining table with his adoptive parents, Mr. and Mrs. Oladejo. The folder with the documents lay open before them. The silence weighed like a storm before it breaks. Where did you get that? Mrs. Oladejo asked, her voice trembling. Daniel took a deep breath. They came to see me today. A man named Obina Nwachukwu. He says he's my brother. Mr. Oladejo froze. The surname fell on the table like an uncomfortable echo. Nwachukwu, he repeated slowly. Mrs. Oladejo looked down. Daniel noticed. Did you know something? The silence was the answer. Mama, he insisted softly. I need to know. Mrs. Oladejo began to cry silently. Mr. Oladejo placed a hand on her shoulder. We knew the adoption was unclear. Daniel felt his stomach clench. Unclear how? Mr. Oladejo sighed deeply. The intermediary assured us it was a voluntary relinquishment, but there were comments, rumors, that the biological father had a lot of power. Daniel felt the world begin to tilt. And still you signed? Mrs. Oladejo looked up, her eyes filled with tears. We wanted you so much, son, that we didn't ask enough questions. The pain in her voice was real. Daniel felt that his anger had no place to settle, because his adoptive parents were not villains. They had loved him, cared for him, given him a stable childhood, but now another truth existed. Did you know my biological mother was alive? He asked with a broken voice. Mrs. Oladejo shook her head fiercely. They told us she had passed away shortly after birth. Daniel closed his eyes. The lie had been bigger than he imagined. Not just for him, but for everyone. The silence became heavy. Do you want to meet her? Mr. Oladejo finally asked. Daniel hesitated. His heart pounded. I don't know. Mrs. Oladejo took his hands. Son, loving you never depended on your origin. But if you need answers, we won't stop you. That phrase gave him something he didn't expect. Freedom. Daniel took a deep breath. I need to see her. The next morning, Chief Nwachukwu's phone vibrated. An unknown message. I want to talk alone. No lawyers, no pressure. Chief Nwachukwu felt his heart quicken. Ada, who was sitting across from him at the breakfast table, noticed the change in his expression. It's him. Chief Nwachukwu nodded. He wants to talk alone. Ada looked at him seriously. Go. Chief Nwachukwu hesitated. What if he rejects me? Ada held his gaze. Then at least you'll have been brave. Chief Nwachukwu took a deep breath and replied, I'm here. Tell me, where? The answer arrived minutes later. Millennium Park at 11. Destiny seemed to repeat the initial scene, another park, another bench, another conversation that could change everything. Daniel was sitting when Chief Nwachukwu arrived. He wasn't wearing a suit. He wasn't wearing an expensive watch, just jeans and a simple shirt. Chief Nwachukwu stopped in front of him. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. The same cheekbones, the same jawline. Daniel broke the silence. I didn't come to fight. Chief Nwachukwu nodded. Neither did I. They sat down. For a moment, neither knew what to say. I always knew something didn't add up, Daniel finally confessed. But I didn't know what it was. Chief Nwachukwu listened without interrupting. I'm not here to take your life from you, he said honestly. I just want you to have the option of knowing the truth. Daniel looked down. Why now? Chief Nwachukwu took a deep breath. Because a woman no one looked at reminded me what it means not to give up. Daniel looked up. She really looked for me all these years? Chief Nwachukwu nodded. She never stopped. The silence became soft, not tense. Daniel swallowed hard. And you? Chief Nwachukwu hesitated for a second. I didn't know you existed, but now that I do, I can't ignore it. That sincerity changed something in the air. Daniel took a deep breath. I want to see her. The words were simple, but they weighed like an opening door. Chief Nwachukwu felt his chest fill with something warm. It wasn't triumph. It was relief. That afternoon, Daniel spoke with his adoptive parents. He explained his decision. Mrs. Oladejo cried. Mr. Oladejo hugged him tightly. Your heart is big, he told him. That's what matters. Daniel felt he wasn't losing a family. He was expanding his story. When the car set off for Lagos, Chief Nwachukwu looked at Daniel in the rearview mirror with a mixture of emotion and fear. Ada, sitting in the back with Daniel, felt she was witnessing something sacred. No one spoke much, but the silence was no longer heavy. It was expectant. Mama Ngozi was sitting in her small room when she heard footsteps in the hallway. Chief Nwachukwu slowly opened the door. Daniel stood in the doorway. Time seemed to stop. Mama Ngozi looked up. Their eyes met. The air disappeared. Daniel, she whispered as if the name had been waiting on her lips for decades. Daniel felt his heart pounding in his chest. He had imagined this moment many times since he knew the truth, but the reality was different, more fragile, more human. He approached slowly. Mama Ngozi stood up with difficulty. Her hands trembled. Forgive me, was the first thing she said. Forgive me for not protecting you. Daniel felt something inside him break, because he didn't see guilt. He saw pain. It wasn't your fault, he whispered. Tears began to fall without permission. Mama Ngozi extended her hand, but didn't dare to touch him. Daniel took the final step and hugged her. It wasn't a perfect hug. It was clumsy, full of tears held back for years. Ada felt her chest explode. Chief Nwachukwu watched with moist eyes, because that hug not only healed his mother, it healed him too. Mama Ngozi cried silently. I thought of you every day, she whispered. Daniel closed his eyes. I didn't know, but I always felt something was missing. Time became irrelevant. 30 years compressed into a single instant. Chief Nwachukwu slowly approached. Daniel looked up. They looked at each other for a few seconds and, without saying anything, hugged too. It was a different hug, more contained, but full of recognition. Ada understood something profound. Family isn't always lost. Sometimes it just hides under layers of lies. When the three sat down, the silence was soft. Daniel looked at Chief Nwachukwu. I don't know how this will be now. Chief Nwachukwu nodded. We don't have to decide today. Daniel looked at Mama Ngozi. I just want to get to know you. Step by step. She smiled through tears. That's enough. Ada felt that the story was reaching a point of light. But she knew something was still missing. Because healing doesn't erase the past, it's learning to live with it. And there were still unresolved questions. Questions about Chief Nwachukwu's father, about justice, about the decisions that had caused so much pain. But for the first time, the truth was no longer buried. It was sitting in that small room, breathing. And though the future was uncertain, there was hope. And sometimes, hope is the greatest miracle. The hug didn't resolve everything. It didn't erase the lost years. It didn't return the empty Christmases. It didn't remove the invisible scars, but it did something more important. It stopped the abandonment. And sometimes, that is the beginning of healing. Daniel decided to stay a few days in Lagos, not in the pension, not in the mansion, but in a small intermediate hotel, because he needed space to understand what he felt. Chief Nwachukwu respected that. For the first time in his life, he didn't try to control the pace of something. He let it flow. Ada noticed every detail. The man who once gave curt orders now asked softly, "Are you comfortable? Do you need anything? Do you want to talk or prefer silence?" Daniel wasn't used to that vulnerability, but he didn't reject it either. One afternoon, the three walked through Muri Okunola Park, the same bench, the same story that began with a cup of coffee. Mama Ngozi wore a new wrapper that Ada had given her. Daniel watched her in silence. "Did you always come here?" he asked. She nodded. "It was the closest I could be to you without invading." Chief Nwachukwu felt a lump in his throat. "And I never knew." Mama Ngozi looked at him with tenderness. "Don't blame yourself for what was hidden from you." Daniel took a deep breath. "Why didn't you fight harder?" The question wasn't an accusation, it was pain. Mama Ngozi held his gaze. "Because when everything is taken from you, sometimes all you have left is to survive." The silence was human, without reproaches, without judgments, just understanding. Chief Nwachukwu knew something was pending. His father's name still floated like a shadow. One night, in the mansion's study, he gathered Daniel and Ada. "I don't want this to turn into a legal war," he said firmly. "My father is no longer here. He cannot answer." Daniel looked at him attentively. "And so, I want to do something different." Ada felt curious. Chief Nwachukwu took a deep breath. "I'm going to create a foundation in our mother's name." Mama Ngozi was present, her eyes filled with surprise. "For what?" "For women who have been silenced by power. For mothers who lost their children due to unjust decisions." Daniel observed him. He no longer saw just the businessman. He saw the man who was choosing to heal instead of taking revenge. "That doesn't change what happened," Daniel said. "No," Chief Nwachukwu replied, "but it can prevent it from happening again." The silence filled with meaning. Ada felt tears in her eyes. She never imagined that a coffee would end up creating something so great. The following days showed a real transformation. Chief Nwachukwu began visiting Mama Ngozi without haste. He sat listening to stories from her childhood. He discovered details he never knew. That he liked to sleep hugging a cloth doll. That he was afraid of the dark. That he laughed loudly when he was happy. Daniel also listened. He recognized himself in some traits, and in others discovered differences that made him unique. They didn't compete. They didn't try to occupy a place that was already taken. They learned to coexist. Ada watched everything with a full heart because she had witnessed the beginning and now saw the fruit. One afternoon, Daniel asked to speak with Chief Nwachukwu alone. They sat on the mansion's terrace. The sunset painted the sky orange and violet. "I don't know what place I'll occupy in your life," Daniel said honestly. Chief Nwachukwu didn't hesitate. "Whatever you want." Daniel looked at him. "I don't want your money." Chief Nwachukwu smiled gently. "I didn't offer it." There was a comfortable silence. "I want time," Daniel continued. "I want to get to know you without pressure." Chief Nwachukwu nodded. "I want that too." And for the first time, both smiled without tension. It wasn't a grand promise. It was something simpler. Presence. One morning, Ada returned to the park with a flask. Mama Ngozi was no longer alone. Daniel accompanied her. Chief Nwachukwu also arrived minutes later. The four sat down. Ada served the coffee. The steam rose slowly. Mama Ngozi smiled. "Do you know what's most incredible?" she said, looking at Ada. "That it all began with this." Ada looked down humbly. "I just didn't want her to be alone." Daniel held the cup in his hands. Sometimes small things change what seemed impossible. Chief Nwachukwu looked at Ada. "I never apologized to you." She looked up, surprised. "Why, sir?" "For believing that helping was a waste of time." Ada smiled gently. "It's never too late to see things differently." Chief Nwachukwu took a deep breath, and in that instant, he understood something no business ever taught him. Power isn't in controlling, it's in connecting. Life doesn't return lost years. It doesn't erase lies. It doesn't precisely mend what was broken. But it does offer opportunities. Opportunities to choose differently, to stop the chain of silence, to transform pain into purpose. Coffee isn't just coffee. It can be companionship, it can be a bridge, it can be the beginning of a buried truth. Sometimes we think we need grand gestures to change the world, but the world changes when someone decides not to pass by, when someone looks at who everyone ignores, when someone says, "I won't leave you." Chief Nwachukwu learned that money doesn't buy lost time, but it can invest in justice. Daniel understood that knowing the truth doesn't erase the love he received, it expands it. Mama Ngozi discovered that it was never too late for an embrace. And Ada confirmed something she already knew in her heart, that kindness is never small. If this story left something in your chest, if you ever felt the world was too cold, remember this. You can always be the hot coffee in someone's winter, because we don't know what doors a simple gesture can open. And perhaps, without realizing it, you're changing a story much bigger than your own. Thank you for making it this far. If this story touched your heart, share it and tell us in the comments. Has a small gesture ever changed your life? Because sometimes what seems insignificant is exactly what saves everything.